New York is ranked as the richest city in the world, surpassing cities such as Paris, Singapore, and London. According to a survey by Henley and Partners and New World Wealth, there are 349,500 millionaires in New York, an increase of 48% over the past decade. The city is home to 744 multimillionaires and 60 billionaires. Meanwhile, the number of millionaires in London fell by 10% to fifth place. A person with $30 million is called a millionaire / a person with $100 million is called a multimillionaire. Here are the top cities by GDP in 2024. New York City, the world's largest urban economy, with a GDP nearly $1 trillion higher than the second largest city. New York City also has the highest net worth of individuals, HNWIs, in the world, with 349,500 people. Bay Area, a tech hub with 305,700 HNWIs. Tokyo, 298,300 HNWIs. Singapore, there are 244,800 HNWIs. London, 227,000 HNWIs. Los Angeles, there are 212,100 HNWIs. Paris, 165,000 HNWIs. Sydney, 147,000 HNWIs. Hong Kong, 143,400 HNWIs. Beijing, 125,600 HNWIs. HNWI stands for High Net Worth Individual. Definition: a person with at least $1 million in liquid assets, excluding their primary residence. The peculiarity of this is that HNWIs are usually self-made professionals, entrepreneurs, or people who inherit large sums of money. They are usually between the ages of 40 and 60. Why is New York City so rich? New York City has Wall Street. The Wall Street area is home to the New York Stock Exchange, the world's largest stock exchange by total market capitalization, and home to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, commercial banks, and insurance companies. Several other stock and commodity exchanges are also located in Lower Manhattan near Wall Street, including the New York Mercantile Exchange and other commodity futures exchanges, as well as the U.S. branch of the New York Stock Exchange. Many brokerage companies have offices nearby to support their operations on exchanges. The economic impact of Wall Street activity is global. Importance: as the economic engine of the New York economy, Professor of Finance is Charles J. R. Geist writes that the exchange has become inextricably linked to the New York economy. Wall Street compensation, including salaries, bonuses, and taxes, is an important part of the economy of New York City, the tri-state metropolitan area, and the United States. Based on Wall Street, New York City is known as the world's most economically powerful city and a leading financial center. As a result, a recession in the Wall Street economy could have a devastating impact on the local and regional economy. In 2008, after a stock market downturn, a recession meant $18 billion less taxable income and less money available for apartments, furniture, cars, clothing, and services. Estimates of the number and quality of financial jobs in the city vary. One estimate is that Wall Street firms employed nearly 200,000 people in 2008. Another estimate is that in 2007, the financial services industry made a profit of $70 billion, or 22% of the city's revenue. Another estimate, 2006, is that the financial services sector accounts for 9% of the city's workforce and 31% of the tax base. Steve Malanga of the Manhattan Institute also estimated in 2007 that the securities industry accounted for 4.7% of jobs in New York City, but 20.7% of wages, and he estimated that there were 175,000 securities jobs in New York, the Wall Street area, and Midtown, with an average annual salary of $350,000. Between 1995 and 2005, the industry grew at an annual rate of about 6.6%, which is a respectable rate, but other financial centers are growing even faster. Another estimate from 2008 was that Wall Street provided a quarter of New York City's total personal income, as well as 10% of New York City's tax revenues. With 163,400 employees as of August 2013, The securities industry continues to be the largest component of New York City's financial industry and an important economic engine. Regardless of the ups and downs of Wall Street's history, it now occupies an even more prominent role in New York City's economy. With employment in the financial sector near its highest level since 2000, average wages higher than in any other industry, and soaring profits in 2024 that will translate into much-needed tax windfall profits next year. While other industries, such as technology, are becoming increasingly important in the economy, Wall Street remains the most important industry in New York and New York State. The results for the first half of the year were very strong, and we expect this year's results to be quite good, which will translate into higher bonuses next year, said State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli, who released his office's annual consolidated report on the securities industry on Wednesday. The city's total employment in 2023 is 198,500, the highest total since 2000. There has been some attrition this year, with preliminary data as of August showing the loss of 3,400 jobs, but employment remains well above pre-pandemic levels. Wall Street's economic impact stems from its extremely high compensation and profits. The average Wall Street salary in 2024 is $471,370, 5 times the average salary of $98,700 in other sectors in the private sector. It is also 67% higher than the second-ranked information services industry, $284,880. High salaries mean huge taxes. The Comptroller General estimates that Wall Street collects $19.4 billion in state taxes, which is only about 20% of the total. The city collected $5.1 billion, or about 10% of all taxes. But as interest rates fall and the stock market approaches all-time highs, Wall Street's profits are rebounding. The Auditor General estimates that full-year profits will soar to $47 billion by 2024, which means bonuses will increase this year and tax revenues will surge again early next year. We're seeing margins moving towards pre-pandemic levels, which suggests we're back to sustainably strong profit levels, DiNapoli said. However, when financial firms want to expand, they find the rest of the U.S. more attractive. Since 2008, New York City's share of all Wall Street jobs has declined year on year and now stands at 17.4%, compared to 33% in 1990. Many of these jobs ended up in Dallas, Texas. Fidelity, Schwab, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and Goldman Sachs have all established major operations there. Goldman Sachs' new building, which will open in 2027, will house 5,000 people, making it its largest office outside of New York. Wall Street withstood the storm, and employment rebounded on the facade of Wall Street on the New York Stock Exchange. Since January 2020, finance jobs in Dallas have grown by 16%. Finance jobs in New York grew by just 8%. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the surge is occurring in 2024. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has not released employment data for the financial sector in the Dallas area. Even in New York, the number of tech jobs in 2022 surpassed that of Wall Street. Still, there is a huge gap between New York and the city where the financial sector is growing. New York City's 373,000 finance jobs are almost one-third more than the Dallas metropolitan area. We don't see Dallas or Miami as a competitor to New York as a global financial capital, said Kathy Wild, CEO of New York City Partnerships, an industry association that includes all major securities firms. Top financial experts in a variety of fields are concentrated in New York City, including legal, technology, accounting, real estate, and marketing talent, which neither city can match for the foreseeable future. The U.S. economy is very strong. After Trump's America First policy, the U.S. economy will be stronger than before. The Economist recently pointed out that the U.S. stock market accounts for more than 60% of the value of the global stock market. 16 years ago, the U.S. stock market fell to its lowest point in modern times. At the beginning of the 21st century, there was a bull run in European and emerging market stock markets, and by March 2008, the United States was in recession and a financial crisis was on the verge of eruption. The U.S. stock market accounts for less than 40% of the total market capitalization of the global stock market. But today the situation is completely different. The share of the United States in the market capitalization of the global stock market has risen steadily over the past 15 years, and this year it has risen sharply. It has now reached 61%. This is a staggering advantage for a country that accounts for a little more than a quarter of global GDP. If we take into account the situation in the U.S. stock market itself, the market concentration is even more extreme. Only 3 companies, Apple APL US, Microsoft MSFT US, and NVD US account for 1/10 of the market capitalization of the global stock market. The U.S. stock market is sucking in investment money from around the world. Funds are flowing through trust funds at an all-time high, with major indices hitting new highs in recent days. After 22 years, the total market value of listed companies has reached more than half of the world. A strong investor base has created strong technology companies, which in turn attract new capital inflows. The policies of the new Trump administration in the United States may lead to further concentration of funds, and the market is beginning to realize the risks. All investors around the world, from retail investors to professional institutions, are investing in the U.S. stock market. Inflows into U.S. equity funds have reached $440 billion this year, surpassing the record for all of 2021, according to research firm EPFR Global. European equity funds have faced outflows for 22 consecutive months. While emerging market stocks, including China, and Japanese equities are weak, the U.S. stock market is clearly in a strong position. There is also a fund in Japan that symbolizes being taken away by U.S. stocks. That is, Mitsubishi UFJ Asset Management's U.S. Stock Investment Trust, EMAXI's Slim U.S. Stocks, S&P 500. Recently, as a domestic public fund, excluding exchange-traded funds ETFs, the net assets of this fund exceeded 6 trillion yen for the first time, and personal funds continued to flow into the fund through Japan's NISA, Small Investment Tax Exemption System, account. Powerful enterprises gathered. Intermittent inflows have pushed up the stock prices of U.S. companies, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average hitting a 3-straight high on December 4th, and using quick FactSet data to calculate the dollar market capitalization of global companies, we found that the total market capitalization of U.S. companies reached $63 trillion at the end of November, accounting for 51% of the world's total. The last time the U.S. stock market accounted for more than 50% of global market capitalization at the end of the month was in March 2002. During a period of economic stagnation, capital inflows accelerated. Among the top 100 companies in the world by total market capitalization, 63 are American companies, an increase of 70% from 37 at the end of 2010, mainly because of the rise of technology companies such as Apple and Nvidia during this period, and the number of companies in the United Kingdom, France, Japan, and other countries that failed to produce leading companies in the technology field declined. Trump's return to power may accelerate the concentration of funds in the United States, and EPFR investment data shows that capital inflows are accelerating after the U.S. presidential election. If Trump's tariffs are implemented, global trade will come to a halt and hit economies in Europe and China, while American companies are expected to benefit from deregulation and extended tax cuts. Dubravko Lakos-Bujas, chief equity strategist at J.P. Morgan Chase & Company, and others pointed out, there are few alternatives to U.S. stocks. Global investors have so far enjoyed high returns by holding U.S. stocks, but on the other hand, they are also beginning to pay attention to the drawbacks of capital concentration. Traditional long-term investors tend to diversify across assets and geographies to protect against unexpected shocks. However, if you want to pursue high returns in the current global equity investment, it is difficult to actively increase investment outside of U.S. stocks. The effect of risk mitigation through diversification must be abandoned to a certain extent. Even as Europe, China, and emerging countries are hit by Trump's America First policy, there is uncertainty about whether the U.S. economy can continue to grow at an extraordinary pace. If there were a shock similar to the 2008 Lehman Brothers crisis in the United States, investment assets that were too focused on the United States would suffer huge losses. Patrick Brenner, head of investment at Schroders, a large UK asset manager, noted that it is risky to concentrate money on U.S. equities, adding, The dollar and gold are also an option in pursuit of diversification. Gold's long-term returns are considered to have a low correlation with equities. Gold prices not only is New York the world's most financially affluent city, investors' unease, but it is also rich in other areas such as society, culture, entertainment, architecture, food and transportation, social welfare, and the healthcare system. Diversity in the global community. New York City's largest community. The world's most diverse city. According to the American Community Survey's 2022 estimates, the most self-proclaimed people in New York City are Dominicans, 8.7%, Chinese, 7.5%, Puerto Rican, 6.9%, Italians, 5.5%, Mexicans, 4.4%, Irish, 4.4%, Asian Indian, 3.1%, Germans, 2.9%, Jamaicans, 2.4%, Ecuadorians, 2.3%, Britishes, 2.1%, Poles, 1.9%, Russians, 1.7%, Arabs, 1.4%, Haitians, 1.4%, Guyanese, 1.3%, Filipinos, 1.1%, and South Koreans, 1.1%. Immigrants in New York are able to speak more than 800 languages. New York City English and New York accent. The New York area has a unique regional accent and speech pattern known as the New York dialect. Culture. New York's immigrants brought to the Big Apple a rich and diverse culture from around the world. New York City is often the setting for novels, movies, and TV shows, and is known as the cultural capital of the world. The city is the birthplace of many cultural movements, including the Harlem Renaissance in the literary and visual arts, abstract expressionism and painting, known as the New York School, and hip-hop, punk, hardcore, salsa, freestyle, timpan lane, some forms of jazz, and, along with Philadelphia, disco and music. New York City is considered the dance capital of the world. One of the most common characteristics of New York City is its fast pace, which gave rise to the term New York moment. New York City residents have historically been known for their resilience, and more recently, they have successfully navigated the effects of the 9/11 terrorist attacks and the COVID-19 pandemic. New York was named the most resilient city in the world in 2021 and 2022, according to Time Out's global poll of city dwellers. Theater. Manhattan's Broadway Theater and Theater District. Golden Jacobs, Schoenfeld, and Booth Theaters in the Theater District. Manhattan is the central hub of American theater and is divided into three sections: Broadway, Off-Broadway, and Off-Broadway. Many movie and TV stars have made their mark in New York productions. The Broadway Theater is one of the premier English-language theaters in the world, named after Broadway, the main thoroughfare across Times Square, and sometimes referred to as Broadway Boulevard. The 41 venues, mostly located in Midtown Manhattan's Theater District, each have at least 500 seats and are classified as Broadway theaters. The 2018-19 Broadway theater season set a record for total attendance of 14.8 million and gross receipts of $1.83 billion. After recovering from COVID-induced closures, revenue rebounded to $1.58 billion in 2022-23, with a total attendance of 12.3 million. The Tony Awards recognize excellence in live Broadway theater and are presented at the annual awards ceremony in Manhattan. Building. New York is home to a variety of styles and periods of architecture, from the Dutch colonial Peter Cleese Wyckoff House in Brooklyn, the oldest part of which dates back to 1656, to the modern-day One World Trade Center, the skyscrapers of the World Trade Center site in Lower Manhattan, and the world's most expensive office building. Manhattan's skyline, home to numerous skyscrapers, has been recognized as an iconic symbol of the city, which is home to several of the world's tallest buildings. As of 2019, New York City has 6,455 tall buildings, the third highest in the world after Hong Kong and Seoul. In 2024, New York will be the third largest city in the world with 318 skyscrapers, followed by Hong Kong, 558, and Shenzhen, 414. Art. Lincoln Center, David A. H. Koch Theater, home to the New York City Ballet, the Metropolitan Opera Center, where the Metropolitan Opera is located. David Geffen Hall, right. Home to the New York Philharmonic Metropolitan Museum of Art, the largest art museum in the Americas. Located in Lincoln Square on Manhattan's Upper West Side, the Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts is home to numerous influential arts organizations, including the Metropolitan Opera, the New York City Opera, the New York Philharmonic, and the New York City Ballet, as well as the Vivian Beaumont Theater, the Juilliard School, Lincoln Center Jazz, and Alice Tully Hall. The Lee Strasberg School of Theater and Film is located in Union Square. The Tisch School of the Arts is located at New York University. And the Central Park Summer Stage hosts free concerts in Central Park. There are more than 2,000 arts and cultural organizations and more than 500 art galleries in New York City. The municipality provides more funding for the arts each year than the National Endowment for the Arts. The city is also home to hundreds of cultural institutions and historical sites. Museum Avenue is part of Fifth Avenue and is located on the upper part of Carnegie Hill on Manhattan's Upper East Side, from 82nd Street to 105th Street. 9 museums occupy this part of Fifth Avenue, making it one of the densest displays of high culture in the world. Cuisine. New York City's food culture includes a range of international cuisines influenced by the city's long history of immigration. Central and Eastern European immigrants, especially Jewish immigrants from these regions, brought New York-style bagels, cheesecakes, hot dogs, scones, and delicatessen to the city. Italian immigrants brought New York-style pizza and Italian cuisine to the city, while Jewish immigrants and Irish immigrants brought pastrami and corned beef, respectively. Chinese and other Asian restaurants, sandwich shops, bistros, eateries, and cafes can be found throughout the city. About 4,000 mobile food vendors are licensed by the city. The New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene assigns alphabetical grades to restaurants in the city based on the results of the inspection. As of 2019, there were 27,043 restaurants in New York City, up from 24,865 in 2017. The Queens Night Market in Flushing Prairie Corona Park attracts more than 10,000 people every night to sample food from more than 85 countries. Vogue. New York City is the global fashion capital, and the fashion industry employs 4.6% of New York City's private workforce. New York Fashion Week, NYFW, is a high-profile, biannual event where models showcase the latest garments designed by fashion designers from around the globe that will be showcased before fashion hits the market. Nicknamed the Avenue of Fashion, 7th Avenue is home to many of the world's fashion houses and famous designers. Parade. New York City is known for its street parades, mostly in Manhattan. The main direction of the annual street parade is usually from north to south, along the main avenue. The annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is the largest parade in the world. St. Patrick's Day Parade in New York City. LGBT Pride Parade in New York City. Halloween Parade in Greenwich Village. Heroes Canyon on Broadway. Chinese New Year Parade in Flushing. Mermaid Parade in Brooklyn always attract many people. Physical education. U.S. Open Tennis Tournament at Corona Park in Flushing Prairie, Queens. Citi Field, also located in Flushing Prairie Corona Park, has been home to the New York Mets since 2009. Yankee Stadium in the Bronx is home to the New York Yankees and New York City Football Club. Barclays Center, home of the NBA's Brooklyn Nets and WNBA's New York Liberty. Madison Square Garden, home of the NBA's New York Knicks and NHL's New York Rangers. New York City is home to the headquarters of the National Football League, Major League Baseball, the National Basketball Association, the National Hockey League, and Major League Soccer. Human Resources. Public Safety. The New York Police Department, NYPD, is the largest police force in the United States, with more than 36,000 officers sworn in. Traffic. Main article. Transportation in New York City. Rapid transit. New York City's public transportation is mostly operational 24 hours a day, accounting for 1/3 of the nation's total public transit users, and 2/3 of the nation's rail riders live in the New York City metropolitan area. Bus. New York City's public bus fleet operates 24 hours a day, making it the largest bus fleet in North America. The Port Authority Bus Terminal is the main intercity bus terminal in New York City and the busiest bus station in the world, with 7,000 buses serving 250,000 passengers daily. Railway. Main article: New York City Subway. The New York City subway system is the largest rapid transit system in the world, measured by the number of stations in operation for 72, and the length of the line. Almost all of New York's subway system is open 24 hours a day. New York is the only U.S. city where the majority, 52%, of households do not have a car. Only 22% of Manhattans own a car. New York City has the largest commuter rail network in North America. The rail network connecting New York City and its suburbs consists of the Long Island Railroad, the Metropolitan Northern Railroad, and New Jersey Transit. The combined system converges at Grand Central Terminal and Penn Station in New York, with more than 250 stations and 20 rail lines. New York City is served by Amtrak, whose busiest station is Pennsylvania Station on the west side of Manhattan, from where Amtrak provides connections to Boston, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. along the Northeast Corridor, as well as long-distance train services to other North American cities. Aviation. Main article: Aviation industry in the New York metropolitan area. The three busiest airports in the New York metropolitan area are John F. Kennedy International Airport, 55.3 million passengers, Newark Liberty International Airport, 43.6 million passengers, and LaGuardia Airport, 29 million passengers. In 2022, 127.9 million travelers used these three airports. Bridges and tunnels. There are many important bridges and tunnels in New York City. The George Washington Bridge, the Verrazano Strait Bridge, the longest suspension bridge in the Americas and one of the longest in the world. The Brooklyn Bridge, the Queens Bridge, the Manhattan Bridge, the Sorens Neck Bridge, and the White Rock Bridge. The Three Wards Bridge and the Bridge. Lincoln Tunnel. Lincoln Tunnel, Holland Tunnel, Queens Midtown Tunnel, Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. New York City is a global center of business and trade and is sometimes referred to as the capital of the world. The Greater New York area is the world's largest metropolitan economy, with an estimated $2.16 trillion in metropolitan GDP in 2022. New York's real gross domestic product GDP per capita in 2023 is $90,730, the highest in the United States, higher than Norway, the top 6 country in Europe, $87,962, and twice the EU average, $40,824. New York's real gross domestic product GDP per capita in 2023 is also higher than that of Singapore, Asia's richest country, $81,695, IMF. In the future, the gap between New York City's GDP per capita and European cities will continue to widen.